You're dreaming. You're standing somewhere you don't recognize. Everything is silent. Then, a phone rings. Not your phone. At least you don't think it is. You look around. There's an old telephone sitting on a table. It keeps ringing. Once, twice, again. You don't know who is calling. But somehow, you feel like you should answer. So you pick up the receiver. And the moment you say hello, there is silence. No voice. No breathing. Nothing. You almost hang up. Then you hear something. A voice quietly says your name. And before you can respond, you wake up. Your room is silent. Everything is normal. Except for one thought you can't get rid of. Why did that phone feel so real? And why? Does it keep ringing every time you dream? Imagine you're inside a room you've never seen before. There's almost nothing inside. A chair, a table, a lamp, and an old telephone. You don't remember putting it there. You don't remember seeing it before. But the moment you notice it, it rings. The sound feels strangely loud inside the dream. You hesitate. Then it rings again. You walk toward it. The closer you get, the more familiar the sound becomes. Almost comforting. Almost threatening. You stare at the phone. There is no visible number. No caller identification. Nothing telling you who is on the other side. And yet, some part of you already feels like you know the call is meant for you. That's what makes objects like phones so powerful in dreams. A phone is something we associate with communication. Someone trying to reach us. Someone waiting for an answer. So when a phone appears in a dream, the emotional meaning can become more important than the object itself. But the strange part begins when you actually answer. Your hand reaches for the receiver. You pick it up. For a moment, there is complete silence. You say, hello. Nothing. You wait. Still nothing. You ask again. Hello. Then, a faint sound. Not a voice. Not static. Something you can't identify. You hold the receiver closer. And suddenly, you hear your own breathing. Except, you're not breathing. The sound is coming from the other side. You freeze. Then someone whispers your name. Your exact name. Not a nickname. Not something similar. Your name. The dream suddenly feels different. This isn't just a mysterious phone call anymore. It feels personal. And now you have a choice. You can ask, who is this? You can hang up. Most people would probably choose the second option. But dreams don't always let you make the safe choice. Sometimes, the voice speaks again. You ask, who is this? Pause. Then the voice says something you don't understand. Maybe it's a sentence. Maybe it's a single word. Maybe it's someone you recognize. But here's the strange thing. You can't remember the exact words after waking up. You only remember the feeling. That feeling can be stronger than the conversation itself. Because dreams often leave us with emotional memories rather than complete narratives. You may wake up knowing something important happened, without being able to explain exactly what it was. And that's where the mystery begins. Who was the caller? Was it someone from your past? Someone you haven't seen in years? A stranger? Or just your brain generating a voice inside a dream? The answer may be less supernatural than it feels. Your sleeping mind is capable of creating conversations using fragments of memories, voices you've heard, expectations, fears, and imagination. The caller doesn't have to represent an actual person. But then, why does the same caller sometimes return? Imagine having the same dream several times. Each time, the phone rings. Each time, you answer. And each time, the caller is different. But the number is always the same. You never consciously memorize it. You never write it down. Yet somehow, when the phone rings, you already know what the number will be. You don't understand why. You simply know. This kind of repetition can make a dream feel like it has rules. Like your mind has created its own system. The phone always appears in the same room. The same table. The same chair. The same ringing sound. And the same number. Maybe the environment changes slightly. Maybe the walls look different. But the call remains. It's almost as if your brain has created a tiny world. And every time you fall asleep, you return to the same unfinished conversation. But now imagine something even stranger. One night, the phone rings before you even see it. You're walking down a hallway. No phone in sight. Then you hear it. Ring. You stop. Ring. The sound is coming from somewhere behind the walls. You follow it. Down the hallway. Around the corner. Through a door. Another hallway. Another door. The ringing gets louder. You finally reach a small room. There's the phone. Sitting on a table. Still ringing. But this time, there is something different. The phone has no cord. It shouldn't be able to work. Yet it's ringing anyway. You stare at it. You know this is impossible. And that realization makes the dream even more unsettling. Because when you're dreaming, the impossible doesn't always feel impossible. Your brain accepts it. No cord? Fine. A phone floating in darkness? Fine. A caller who knows your name? Fine. The rules don't have to make sense. They only need to feel emotionally convincing. And sometimes, the most frightening dreams are the ones where everything feels almost normal. The phone rings again. This time you don't move. You already know what happens when you answer. You stay where you are. The ringing continues. 1 ring. 2, 3, 10. It doesn't stop. You leave the room. The ringing follows you. You enter another hallway. The ringing gets louder. You close a door. The sound continues from behind it. You cover your ears. Still ringing. Now you understand something. The phone isn't simply calling you. The dream has made the call impossible to escape. And psychologically, this can create a powerful feeling. The feeling of being unable to avoid something. A responsibility. A memory. A decision. A conversation you never had. Or simply anxiety. Again, none of these interpretations are universal. A dream doesn't come with a dictionary. But the emotion can tell you something about how the dream is affecting you. Maybe the important part isn't that the phone is ringing. Maybe the important part is why you don't want to answer. Now imagine the phone rings again. You answer. And this time, you recognize the voice immediately. Someone you know. Someone from your past. Maybe they're far away. Maybe you haven't spoken in years. Maybe the relationship ended badly. Or maybe everything is completely fine. But hearing their voice inside the dream creates a powerful reaction. You ask them why they're calling. They don't answer. You ask again. Still nothing. Then they say, I need you to remember. The line goes silent. You ask, remember what? Nothing. The call ends. You wake up. And now you spend the morning trying to figure out what you're supposed to remember. But there may not be one hidden answer. Sometimes the brain uses familiar people because they already carry emotional associations. The dream doesn't necessarily need to reproduce the person perfectly. It only needs to reproduce what that person makes you feel. And that feeling can become the real message of the dream. But there is one version of this dream that is particularly disturbing. You answer the phone. A voice says, don't hang up. You ask, who is this? The voice pauses, then answers. You look around the room. Nothing. The voice continues. Sounds exactly like you. Same tone. Same rhythm. Same voice. Then it says, don't open the door. You turn around. There is now a door behind you. A door that wasn't there before. You look back at the phone. The voice says your name again. And then, you're already inside. You wake up. Heart racing. The room is dark. You stare at your own phone beside the bed. For a second, you wonder whether it might ring. This kind of dream plays directly with one of the most unsettling ideas the mind can create. The possibility that the message is coming from yourself. Not another person. Not a stranger. So why does the brain use a phone? There isn't one definitive answer. But it's an incredibly useful dream object. A phone represents connection, communication, waiting, information, expectation, someone reaching you, someone trying to contact you. And modern life has made phones emotionally powerful objects. We spend enormous amounts of time with them. We wake up with them. We fall asleep beside them. We use them to communicate with people we love. We use them to receive good news, bad news, unexpected news. So when your brain needs an object to represent communication or anticipation, a phone is an obvious choice. But there's something else. Phones also create uncertainty. You see the screen. You can see that someone is calling. But you can't know what they want until you answer. That tiny gap between knowing you're being contacted and knowing why is perfect material for a dream. Because dreams thrive on uncertainty. Imagine the dream again. The phone rings. You answer. The caller says your name. Then silence. You wait. Nothing. You ask, why are you calling? The voice answers, because you already know. Then the line cuts out. You stare at the phone. It rings again. You answer. Same voice. Same words. Because you already know. Again. And again. Each time you answer. The same sentence. No explanation. No ending. Eventually you realize something terrifying. The phone isn't giving you information. It's forcing you to search for the information yourself. That's what makes unanswered questions so powerful. The human mind naturally wants closure. When a story stops before the ending, your brain wants to finish it. When a door remains closed, you want to know what's behind it. When a phone rings, you want to know who's calling. And dreams can turn that natural need for answers into something deeply unsettling, because the dream can end without ever giving you the answer. Now imagine waking up from the dream. You sit in bed. You remember the phone. You remember the voice. You remember your name. You look at the real phone beside you. It's silent. You laugh at yourself. It was only a dream. You get up. You start your morning. Then, several minutes later, your actual phone rings. You look at the screen. Unknown number. You don't answer. It stops. A few seconds later, it rings again. And for one moment, you remember the dream. You stare at the screen. You know there is probably a perfectly normal explanation. Spam. A wrong number. A random call. Something ordinary. But your brain doesn't care, because the emotional connection has already been made. And suddenly, you wonder, what if I answer? Maybe your dream phone means nothing supernatural. Maybe it's simply your brain using a familiar object to process memories, emotions, and uncertainty. Maybe the caller is a reflection of something you've been thinking about. Maybe the voice belongs to someone you remember. Or maybe the phone is simply part of a strange dream your mind created for no particular reason. But if the phone keeps appearing, pay attention to the pattern. Where are you when it rings? Who are you expecting to hear? Are you afraid to answer? And what happens immediately after you pick up? Because those details may tell you more than the phone itself. And tonight, if your dream phone rings, you have a choice. You can answer, or you can let it ring. But remember, sometimes the most disturbing part of a phone call isn't who's calling. It's the possibility that the caller already knows you're there. This is Dream Object Files. And the next file is already waiting.